This is the Nikon F3, and yeah, it's the best camera ever made. But what makes this camera so special? What makes it more important, to me at least, than a Leica or a Hasselblad? I mean, it's from the 80s. How good can it be? Turns out, yeah, it's pretty good, and after putting a few rolls of film through it, I think there's a lot more going on here than just the specs alone. But not only that, my experience of becoming a Nikon F3 person has led me down some dark and mysterious Wikipedia rabbit holes. It's resulted in, let's just say, my fair share of late night eBay lens buying, and overall, I think it might have changed my life. But before we get into that whole therapy session, first, let's take a look at the camera as well as the gear that I got to go along with it. We'll go and take some photos, and I'll explain why this is related to the Fiat Panda. No, really, stick with me. Imagine seeing this in 1980. You would fall to your knees and weep at the sticker price of, an adjusted for inflation, $4,100. But what did you get for your money? Well, obviously, you got Nikon's tried and true, unbeatable reliability and durability. But now, especially compared to the Nikon F2 that came before, you get an electronically controlled shutter. That means aperture priority, which is a big thumbs up from me, and more accurate exposures, but it does mean that you need a battery. That's okay, because it lasts for about a year. You also get, and I'm not exaggerating, the most satisfying advance lever I have ever felt in my entire life. It feels like shifting gears in a Porsche. You get all the bells, and the whistles too. Your self-timer, mirror lockup, depth of field preview, fancy exposure compensation dial, double exposure switch, and probably most iconically, the removable viewfinder. This was kind of a big deal at the time, and I have to admit, it's still extremely cool having a waist level viewfinder just on demand, but it also fixes one of the biggest problems I've had since I started photography. You see, this specific camera is an f3 HP, meaning it came with the HP or high point viewfinder. I've never really been perfectly happy with my framing and composition. I've come to realize that that is not because I'm a rubbish photographer. It's just because I'm blind. I wear thick glasses. Even with the more expensive lenses that are thinner, I have really bad eyesight, and so they're still quite chunky. And that usually means that when I look through the viewfinder, I can't see all of the edges of the frame unless I move my head around like a twit before I take the photo. The HP viewfinder is designed to fix that problem specifically. It puts the eye relief further away, meaning with my glasses on, I can see every edge of the frame perfectly clearly, and the light meter, which sounds like normal, but for me, it's a revelation. I have no idea how I survived with other viewfinders for so long. There is, however, one big drawback with the removable viewfinder. There's no hot shoe. Kind of. Sort of. There is this weird specific Nikon F3 only flash adapter on the rewind lever, but since I don't have one of the specific Nikon flashes that go on it yet, I've got this, the AS4 adapter. This goes on here, and then I can put any of my other flashes on and use them in manual mode like normal. I usually like to use Lil Viv when I shoot film. This is a Vivitar Auto 215 flash. I bought it for like 50p, I think, in a market and fixed it, but I would like to use the big Chungus SB700 more often since it bends around and it's a bit more versatile. The SB700 though can be a bit tricky to use in full manual, so if anybody knows what the default settings for the guide number mode is, like when it gives you a distance scale, if anybody knows what the default aperture and ISO it goes to if it can't talk to the camera, that would be superb. Please let me know. I did pick up some other gear and some lenses for this camera, but first I think it's important to explain what makes it feel so special, because it's not just the build quality. The thing about the Nikon F3 is it's just got aura, like it's just so cool. Just look at the ridiculous ads they were running for this thing when it was selling back in the 1980s, back when ad copywriting was taken seriously. One of the few things on the space shuttle that doesn't have a backup system, and yeah, they were on the space shuttle, but they weren't just in space, they were and are in the hands of a lot of photographers who I really admire. Boogie is a massive source of inspiration for my documentary and street work, and he's been shooting an F3 since I was in school. Eddie Adams, Steve McCurry, Peter Lindbergh, and now This guy, one of the many reasons that everyone seems to be attracted to the Nikon F3 like it's a Ferrari or something, is that it was styled by a certain Mr. Giorgetto Giugiaro. Giorgetto Giugiaro. What else did he get up to back in the day? Oh yeah, that's right, he like designed some Ferraris, as well as the DeLorean, the Fiat Panda, not that one, this one, and not one, not two, but three of my favorite cars ever made. The Mazda Familia, the Lotus Esprit, and above all else, the FSO Polonaise. The F3 was also the first Nikon camera to have this now iconic red stripe, and although I can't find a source for this online, I think the red stripe was Mr. Giugiaro's idea. And so obviously all of that heritage and history behind the camera really does make it feel like you're shooting something special. It's not perfect, and I will do some complaining about what it doesn't do well, but first, let me walk you through my discretionary spending. So as well as the camera, I obviously had to buy some lenses, right? Because, well, I had a problem. A lot of my Nikon F-mount lenses were useless on the F3. For some reason, we went through this weird period in the 2010s where we stopped putting aperture rings on lenses. I'm glad we're back to not doing that, but it does mean that my baby, the Sigma Art 51.4, is basically useless on this. Because I can't control the aperture, it's locked into being f16, which isn't my favorite, and I did figure out that I could just duct tape the aperture open at f1.4, but that's not really my favorite either. You see, one of my goals with the Nikon F3 was to build a set of lenses I use for everything: film stills, digital stills, and cinematography on the FX30. That way I could save money and not have to buy so many different flavors of lens. So I spent some money and bought more lenses. First and foremost is the Nikkor AI 35mm f2.8. Should I have got the AIS? Should I have got the faster f2? Not sure, maybe, but this was cheap and it's got a really lovely look actually. It's full of character, but it's still quite sharp in the middle, and I've been really loving how it looks. I still haven't quite got the hang of zone focusing it because the distance scale kind of sucks, but I'm sure with practice I'll get used to it. Then I needed a replacement for the 50. So I bought one of Nikon's cheapest lenses ever, the 50mm f1.8 AFD. And it's pretty good actually. I don't like how it looks wide open. I find there's something just a little icky that doesn't feel right to me, but at f5.6 or f8, which is usually where I like to be, my boy's wicked sharp.
My boy's wicked smart.
Then I have to admit, I may or may not have stayed up a little too late and been influenced by a certain someone and ended up ordering this ridiculous lens. This is the Nikkor 50-300mm f4.5. It's pre-AI, so I can't use it on the D750 anyway. It's got more chromatic aberration than a Crystal Pepsi. It weighs nearly 3 kilograms, that's 6 pounds or 1.5 nocts. And I love it. It's parfocal, so it's super for video, especially when I'm going for that vintage look. It's got more range than any lens I've ever owned before, which is opening up some creative possibilities. And it really makes me want to dress up like a 1980s press photographer. Get this, when this lens came out in 1977, adjusted for inflation, this would cost nearly $20,000. Mine cost about $200. Not a bad discount for waiting 50 years. If you have some strong opinions on Nikon F-mount glass that you think has the secret special sauce and you need me to try it, let me know in the comments. But all the gear aside, what's it like to use? What's it like to make art with? First of all, I think the most underrated spec of any camera is how it feels in your hands. And for me and my fairly regular man-sized hands, it is perfectly Goldilocks. It's just the right weight and it's just the right size, and this little lip for my fingers to grab onto at the front makes a huge difference coming from my gripless K1000. Loading the film is easy, and all the controls, just listen. Thing is, even though it feels really precise and perfect, I feel confident that I could mistreat this camera a lot and it would just keep on trucking. It's the sort of camera that I feel confident taking anywhere to shoot anything. But in saying that, having a viewfinder that actually fits my eyes has really changed the way that I photograph. It's actually not just easy, but possible now for me to carefully and meticulously compose and frame, so I'm really excited to play with being a bit more intentional and slower with my photography. But what about the Pentax K1000? Don't panic, it's not going anywhere. There's always going to be a place for some K-mount action in my life. I love those lenses. I love how that camera feels, especially for fast-paced street photography, but I think I'll use it more as an option and not the default. The thing about the F3 is that there's something about this camera that just fundamentally feels different. I feel like this immediately puts me in the mindset of an artist, contrasted really heavily by my Nikon D750, which immediately feels like a work tool. And I love a good work tool, but sometimes I want an art tool. Takes one to know one. Or maybe that's just me justifying getting another camera. Gas, anyone? If this video has made you a little gassy and you're opening eBay in a new tab as we speak, take a breath. It's gonna be okay. Just watch this video next about gear minimalism and why you actually don't need to buy a new camera. Stay hydrated and create art.